Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. We have an update, of course, on something that the community's been interested in getting more answers in for some time. It's taken a number of months, about 11 to be exact, and we really do appreciate the State Fire Marshal and their team, as well as our team here locally, for trying to get the answers and closure to this very horrific tragedy in South Bend. As we enter into another winter, it is a good opportunity to remind the winters are dry conditions and present the opportunities for fires to get out of control. So we'll have some updates too on what folks can do and residents can do to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. Now we have an update here. We're going to have some answers to be able to provide to you today, but we're due to the horrific nature of the event, we don't have a complete answer to every question that the community has and would like to have answered, that we would like to have answered. It's frustrating. We can't know every possible thing, why it happened, exactly what unfolded, but there will be some answers and hopefully bring some level of closure. Of course, even if we had all the answers, that wouldn't really take away from the tragedy and the mourning that happened in our community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our State Fire Marshal, Steve Jones, to give a brief overview of the findings from their investigation. And then following that, we'll have our fire chief come up and share some thoughts. But with that, Steve Jones, please come up.
Good morning. Very much appreciate the media and everybody being here today. The things I have to share, I guess in the long term, is to prevent fires and save lives. But I'm Steve Jones, the Indiana State Fire Marshal, and I'm here today to provide an update on the tragic occurrence that occurred on January 21st at 222 LaPorte Avenue here in South Bend. First and foremost, I want to express condolences to the Smith family. It's a devastating loss. And loss of their children, Davida, Faith, Demetrius, Deontay, D'Angelo, and Angel. As a parent and grandparent myself, I cannot begin to imagine the profound grief and anguish the Smith family is experiencing. My heart goes out to them during this incredibly difficult time. To the South Bend community, I know this tragedy has shaken you to the core. The loss of 6 young lives is absolutely heartbreaking. Please know that we grieve alongside of you, and we have worked tirelessly to determine what happened and how the fire started. We understand everyone's interest in this matter and appreciate your patience. To ensure fairness to everyone involved, we can only share information directly related to the facts of the investigation at this stage. It remains confidential to protect parties involved. It will be made available through proper legal channels when appropriate. We thank you for your understanding as we work to handle this matter with the utmost care and professionalism. Of this fire. The jurisdiction of my office ends outside of those parameters, and any additional actions related to the case will not impact our determinations. Before detailing our findings, it's important to explain that the investigation has led to a cause undetermined. This is a common determination in fire investigations when a definitive cause cannot be established despite exhaustive efforts. A cause undetermined ruling does not reflect on the quality or thoroughness of the investigation, but reinforces the fact that fire investigation is a scientific endeavor that requires a specific level of certainty to be achieved based upon definite evidence to correctly identify the cause of the fire. In short, this cause determination reflects the fact that the evidence does not point definitively in one direction or another as to what exactly ignited the fire. This is because more than one potential cause was identified in the area of origin, and there is simply not enough scientific data to identify a single ignition source. We have conducted an exhaustive and meticulous examination of the scene, working diligently to piece together exactly what happened that terrible night. Our team, in collaboration with ATF and South Bend fire investigators, we've invested thousands of hours in this case, leaving no stone unturned in the quest for answers. In an investigation of this magnitude, it is normal and expected for the community to want to hear clear answers to what started the fire. Unfortunately, in fire investigations, those are not always available due to the nature of the incident, the extent of the fire, and from battling the blaze of the fire, and a lack of scientific evidence once the fire is extinguished. While we do not know all the definitive answers, here are some key findings from our investigation. Number one, the fire started in the family and dining room area of the house. Number two, we know there has been a lot of discussion and curiosity about smoke detectors and whether they worked. While some were found in a home, we cannot determine what sounded, if anything sounded, during the event. Witnesses on the scene never heard a smoke alarm. The father did not hear a smoke alarm, nor could a smoke alarm be heard on the 911 call that originated from the house. Number three, and then number four, there is no evidence of criminal activity or arson that was found in the investigation. One of the things we wanted to do is to be able to talk about how the fire progressed. And there was a video camera on the church across the street with the house in view. And so we wanted to give kind of the background and how this fire took place to help explain why this fire was such a tragedy. And this is timelines from the video across the street. That at 6:08:56, there is a glow that you can notice in the visible in that window on the south side of the house. You can't see it from the picture, but when you watch the video, you can see a small glow originate. Families upstairs, fires downstairs. At 6:10:10, it's obvious we have a large volume of fire and smoke in the house. Nobody is aware of the fire that's going on downstairs. At 6:10:49, the flames are seen and you can see there's smoke coming out of the house. Again, nobody is aware that there is a fire downstairs. At 6:10:50, the southeast window fails and fire vents from the window. And this is on the rear of the house that the fire's gotten so big and so hot that the window has broken downstairs. Still, nobody knows there's a fire going on inside of the house. At 6:11:02 p.m., the south window fails and fire vents from the window. So now that I've got more heat, we have now caused more windows to break on the first floor. 6:11:33, there's activity that can be seen in the video from this window right here on the second floor. So we know at this point they're aware of something going on downstairs. At 6:11:54, large fire visible on the first floor, southwest window, and a person is seen hanging from the window from the second story. At 6:11:57, the father is seen dropping down from the south second story window and dropping outside of the house. At 6:12:53, the father is seen trying to gain entry to the house and trying to rescue his children. At 6:14:49 p.m., the 911 call is made. First floor is engulfed in flames, and several individuals are seen, just bystanders trying to gain access to help the father save his children. At 6:16:42, the fire department is dispatched. And you can see at the time of dispatch, we have a huge volume of fire on that first floor of the home. At 6:17:43, the fire department arrives. It's interesting to note that the fire department was on scene after dispatch within 1 minute of dispatch. But you can see the volume of fire that they have on the first floor at the time the fire department arrived. And I think you can see from the fire growth from the time we first noticed to the time the fire department arrived, that fire was just absolutely huge. And so it was a very difficult incident. It's important to note that the fire was already well developed by the time emergency services were called. As evidenced by the timeline of fire progression, the fire had spread significantly and vented through multiple windows before the fire department was even dispatched. South Bend Fire Department was swift and professional in their response, with every available resource deployed to combat the blaze. The fire department's actions that night reflect the highest standards of emergency response and dedication to public safety, even in the face of overwhelming circumstances and severe weather conditions that were beyond their control. That's the facts as we know them. Moving forward from here, while we cannot provide definitive cause, our investigation has been thorough and methodical. Through fire investigations, it can be an ongoing process, and new evidence could emerge, which we currently exhausted all available investigative avenues. Moving forward from here, we encourage residents to focus on prevention and safety. Ensure your smoke detectors are working. Practice family fire drills, and make for sure exits are clear. These simple steps save lives. We recognize this incident has deeply affected the South Bend community, and we hope in providing these findings, we will help this community in the state of Indiana to begin a healing process and to move forward and try to do those things that are fire safe and be able to prevent other lives from being lost. At this time, I'd like to ask he's a brother of the firehouse, right? Chief Buchanan to come up and make a few comments.
Good afternoon. Well, still good morning. Thank you, Fire Marshal Jones. South Bend Fire Department take great pride in what they do. It's not an easy job, but it's one that we all were ordained and permitted to do on behalf of our community. And we do it to the best of our abilities, and we appreciate our citizens having, for the most part, supporting us when we have to go through something of this magnitude. This is tremendous not only for the community, but also for the members of the South Bend Fire Department. We live with this tragedy each and every day. We do not take it lightly. We still have firefighters that are still struggling mentally and physically with this event from that fatal night. I submitted a quote to the Fire Marshal's office in regard to this incident, and for the most part it stipulates, communities such as ours are strengthened by how they overcome adversity and come together to support one another after tragic events. Working together through public education and fire prevention will help these events from occurring more often and will always be the top priority of the dedicated men and women of the South Bend Fire Department. One thing I'd like to stipulate that Fire Marshal Jones pointed out was fire and life safety, and having something as simple as a working smoke alarm on each floor of your home. In the past, we have issued out smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors to individuals wanting them, only to at times go into their homes and find these smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors sitting on a dresser, a bureau, a counter, or somewhere where it's not operating the way that it's supposed to. So therefore, we started the smoke alarm program within our Fire Prevention Bureau, where we have free smoke alarms available, but they are not available to take out. They are available to have one of our qualified technicians or firefighters come to your residence, install them where they are to be installed, where they are properly installed correctly and functional before that individual will leave that home, but also to talk over a fire escape plan with the family members. The one thing we take for granted sometimes is that as adults, we may know what to do in case of a fire. And even though your children may come to fire stations on numerous field trip opportunities and they get information and they'll have a public education officer teach them about fire safety, but a lot of times we fall short on really giving them all of the information that they really need when they need it. It used to be stop, drop, and fall. That's all that pretty much kids knew back in the day. Well, we've evolved from that, and we are taking school-age children and teaching them and educating them on not just stop, drop, and roll, rather, but also educating them on how and what to do in case of a fire in their homes. Having that general discussion with their parents, not only about, the good things that went on in school or maybe some of the things that they endured during school, but having a general, honest conversation with their parents about something that may save their lives. Life is very precious. We're all here today because of the lives that was took, the lives that was lost, the families that was affected, the community that was affected by what happened on that unfortunate night. But we should not leave here with not only that in mind, but we should leave here thinking, how can we prevent that from happening again? And that would mean all of us should have a part in that. And not just the fire department, or not just certain people, or not just status quo persons in our community that don't have the means or don't have the necessities to be able to afford certain things. This is not about that. And as long as I'm the fire chief, South Bend Fire Department, I will always be an advocate for those that don't have and those that need. And if we have the ability to provide those, we should be doing it. It shouldn't be about how much they cost. It shouldn't be about, well, the landlord should provide these things. We, as a fire department, I feel is a responsibility to make sure that each resident has a working smoke alarm and carbon monoxide detector. So I am appealing to the public. If you have not checked your smoke alarm, and if you believe that it may work or may not work, find out for sure if it does before it's too late. Thank you.
We'd like to take this time to open it up for some questions. Some of the specifics about the investigation we can't talk about, but if the media has a few questions, that we'll take 4 or 5 questions that to see if we can field and offer up some answers.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I simply wanted to clarify the timestamp on the camera across the street.
Uh-huh.
So from the time that there was a little glitter in the window to the fire department arriving was how many minutes?
I can't recall specifically. These pictures will be made available on our website, I think.
They're included in the release.
Yeah, they'll be included in a release, so you can reference the exact time frames and be able to.
That is the clock and not the time code for the tape.
Yeah, that's the clock. So, yes, ma'am.
So in a February 15th release, you guys said there you were aware of the documented history of electrical issues and that you didn't determine if those were resolved before the incident. Has that been determined at all?
The specifics again of the investigation, we're not going to get into the specifics of that, but it's important to know in order for us to determine the exact cause scientifically, we got to be able to demonstrate that. And this fire, just because it got so big in the intensity, we could not come to a scientific definitive answer as to exactly what the cause of the fire was. Yes, go ahead.
So at this point, is the investigation totally wrapped up, or kind of, will things still be looked at after here?
We're still looking at things, and it's like anything else. More information could come available. So we, especially a fire of this magnitude, it deserves our utmost attention. And we, right now, we have turned every stone over that we absolutely can on this case. And so what could happen in the future, I can't really go into that because I don't know what that might be. But up until this point, we've conducted a very thorough investigation, and this is where we've landed right now.
Could I ask what those specifics could you be looking at moving forward? Like, what are those things that...
I don't want to get into hypotheticals. I just want to stick with the facts that we know today. Yes, sir.
What's the case, this underlying legal case that's preventing you from telling us more details?
Well, it's just all of our fire investigations is there's a lot of sensitive information, sensitive to submit who they are and the reasons why, and our legal team will look at it and determine who can get a copy of that report, but there's a process for that. Yes, sir.
Obviously, the cause is still has been determined, undetermined. But are there any causes that you've been able to rule out at this point, or is every single potential cause still on the table?
Well, there's nothing, like I said, that would make it a criminal or an arson. Don't see any indication. That's the facts as we know them today. And that's why fire investigations is, my fire investigators are scientists out there working, looking at a lot of different things. And so if we've got to have definitive scientific things that demonstrate the cause of the fire. We don't have what's landed where it is currently. So,
Are your results similar to those investigations done by the insurance companies? Do you usually coordinate?
our investigation typically is independent of insurance company. So that's, I really don't have answers for that, but our investigation is independent, working with South Bend Fire investigators, the fire department, and ATF on this case.
Are there any, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if you have any way to kind of explain, you had said that, there were more than one potential cause, but you couldn't determine anything scientifically. What does it mean to really be able to determine this is the cause of the fire? And why was that, burden of proof, I guess, not able to be met in this case?
Well, and I'll speak generally, is when we have a fire, like all the electrical wires fall down on the ground, and there's a lot of different electrical components, and there's no definitive to point to that we could find. And so ruling out, we don't see anything criminal, nothing arson. So this is scientifically where this fire investigation is at. I'll take one more question and that's it. Yes, sir.
342 days ago, January 21st, speculation was that Mr. Smith wasn't home. Mr. Smith was gone. Not only have you exonerated this man, but you have squashed the Facebook.
Yes, sir.
All the streaming that tried to accuse this man of not protecting his family. Why 340 days later are you here to tell this community this opposed to?
Well, and I'll just speak personally. I met with Mr. Smith personally, and we've discussed all this, and with his, and my responsibility to Mr. Smith and his family is to treat him with the utmost dignity and respect. And so I drove up to South Bend and met with him personally to talk about today, about what was going to be released. And so he was home, and I can speak to that, and very much, again, my condolences, because there's nothing I can say or my agency can say that can turn the clock backwards and undo what happened. But I appreciate Mr. Smith and his representation, and just being able to work through this difficult investigation. This is it's not easy, and again, we want to be meticulous and professional, and we don't draw conclusions ahead of what our scientific data says. And until our team goes through all the scientific things that they need to, we don't want to speak ahead of that. And so it's not uncommon. Most fires take longer than this because but because of the magnitude, and we've put all of our resources into this. So it's not uncommon. Most cases, it probably can take years if it gets wrapped up in some other things that I don't want to, speak to right now. But this is the normal process of a fire investigation, other than we have left no stone unturned and spent a lot of time and then coming up to meet with Mr. Smith and talk about today. So I appreciate everyone's time, and if you have other questions related to anything, if it relates to the Fire Department of South Bend, take your questions that way, or my PIO's here, and he can provide you information on how to get in contact with him. I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you.
Media, a quick heads up, the City of South Bend does have a webpage for some material resources